in terms of the Club World Cup, the team that's doing well from Portugal is Benfica. And they might be the team that nobody else wants to face now because of what they did to Bayern Munich. And Chelsea have got to face them. Can Lightning strike at the same club twice in that respect, JJ?
I mean, I definitely think that it's that it's possible. I mean, I think an element of this as well. We're talking about sort of Angel Di Maria being timeless. We've said it so many times in the past in the show, but it's also created this really kind of odd dynamic. And I know Andy was riffing on it, so I'll bring him in a minute or tee him up for it. But it's one of the more fascinating elements of this Club World Cup that you've got a handful of players who are playing with their soon-to-be ex-club when their departure has already been announced. And in some cases, in Di Maria's case, we already know his future destination. So it's almost a little bit like when contracts were temporarily extended during COVID for the shortened knockout phase of the Champions League in 2020, which was incidentally as well hosted in Portugal. And it's created this fascinating dynamic where you could maybe understand a little bit if Di Maria had kind of down tools and wasn't performing at his usual level, but it seems like it's the opposite right now in terms of the performances that he's putting out there. But there's a couple of other interesting scenarios as well. We mentioned Bayern Munich, you've got Leroy Sané as well, like Andy mentioned before coming into the show, like having already been unveiled by Galatasaray. I find it's one of the more mind-boggling scenarios that this new format tournament has managed to create.
But almost expected, like Leroy Sané to come on the pitch in a Bayern shirt and Galatasaray shorts.
Can you imagine?
It felt a bit like that, didn't it?
Can you imagine what it's doing to spectators? Football fans who are watching this. Hang on,
who do you play for?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there is.
Lots
there is
of
a
talk of the opposition defence. Hang on, are you supposed to be here?
For what it's worth, though, I'm definitely not against an Angel Di Maria victory lap. Look, I want to go back to JJ in a minute and talk about like what a player he has been in European football. Amazing. Because I feel in the QSI era, he's one of the underrated superstars of PSG. He was so good for
contribution-wise, top three must be, I think.
Yeah, right. There we go, from the horse's mouth. I mean, what a player! What a player! And like a player who really deserves, I think, this little farewell tour, even if it's a mini one, and hopefully going on a little bit longer because, as you say, Benfica doing really well. I mean, it's funny in the season where Barcelona finally did away with their Bayern hoodoo, Benfica have now done the same. They've never beaten Bayern before. So for them to go and do that was fantastic. And I thought they played really, really well in this game. Now, really, everything that Benfica has done has come from that opening game against Boca, where they were 2-0 down. They came back, despite the fact they were down to 10. And the bit that really got me, and one of the images of this tournament, is where Nicolas Otamendi equalises against Boca, and then he just goes up and sort of confronts the Boca fans afterwards, and it's like, wow, only a man with a Walter White tattoo could do that, which I really enjoyed. But I think really,
has he really got one? Walter White,
he does.
Oh my goodness!
It goes to the heart of something, I think, in that when we talk about the fact that there's this slight disconnect in the Club World Cup between, let's not talk about the clubs for a minute, because we know the clubs will want it because it's loads of money. But with the players, the European players who are like a bit, oh my God, is this season never going to end? And like Brazilian and Argentinian players, and particularly Brazilian players, who are looking at it thinking, right, okay, we've got a chance to bloody the noses of these guys that we never get to play. These Europeans who think that football is all about them, and we're going to show them what football is about. We're going to show them the passion of football. We're going to bring the fans, and the fans are going to bring the noise. And this is a big deal to us. And of course, the Club World Cup, even in its previous format, was always a big deal to the South American sides. But this expanded tournament, and I spoke to some Mexican journalists about it, and like not for a second are thinking about the extra miles on the players or any of that sort of stuff. They're like, we get to take these guys on who we never get to confront. And I think that if we talk about that disconnect, who are the sort of team who bridge that gap? Benfica are the obvious one, and Porto to a lesser extent, I suppose, well, certainly to a lesser extent, now they're not in it anymore. But the fact is that Benfica are almost the joint between Europe and South America, because their recruitment policy is so strongly South American. We know the connect already that Portugal has with Brazil in terms of immigration, labour, all those sort of things. And so I think the fact that Otamendi and Di Maria turn out to be key guys is no sort of surprise at all. And that Otamendi equaliser, not just bringing them back into the competition, but the whole feel of that game. Boca Benfica was the first, and I guess we talked about it with DC last week, it was the first game of this Club World Cup where you could feel the hairs on the back of your neck stand up and you thought, yeah, this is it. Forget all the financial nonsense for a minute. Forget the fact that this is a cash grab
it's rock and roll.
And a power grab. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly it is. And you think, okay, right, I can see why this tournament is here now. And Benfica have gone forward with that a little bit. And I do wonder if a big part of it is to do with the fact that they have such a huge South American influence, traditionally and currently.